Welcome to My Favorite CX, a podcast that celebrates exceptional customer experiences. To listen to today's, please choose from one of the following options.
Welcome to My Favorite Customer Experience. I'm Chris Holt over here in the UK, and we're going to spend some time today talking around customer experience and someone's favorite customer experience. And our guest today telling us all about his favorite customer experience recently is Rob Dwyer. Rob, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you, Chris. It's great to be on the show.
For those that don't know Rob, he's a customer success and contact center leader and a globally recognized thought leader in the field of customer experience. Over 15 years of experience helping customers drive adoption and enterprise transformation. And his expertise helps to lead initiatives across a sphere of the world of customer experience. And he also brings that to his own podcast, Next in Queue. Rob, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself and what it is you do?
Yeah, I would love to. You know, I never thought I would be in this position. Right up until 2008, I was in the mortgage business. I had been a decade in financial services, and I really thought the bank I was working for, I was going to retire with them. And then I think most of us of a certain age remember what happened in 2008, and I found myself looking for a new career. And like most people who end up in the contact center space specifically, but also support, it's usually by accident. And for me, it was absolutely by accident. I had moved to St. Louis because my wife's job had taken her there. And I was just looking for something to help pay the bills and to provide health insurance. I know across the pond, you guys don't have this problem, but here in the States, we have this thing where
Not yet, we should say.
Employer-based insurance is a big deal. And so I took a role with Convergys, which is now Concentrix. It's a huge global BPO. And I was an agent. I was handling retention calls for one of the largest cell phone companies here in the United States. And what I found was this industry offered a lot of opportunity. While the job itself wasn't the most glamorous or exciting, what I did find was I got a chance to hone some skills, and I very quickly was offered an opportunity to move into training. And then I moved into leadership development. And before I knew it, I was supporting sites all over the globe. I was traveling for the company, including outside of the country to these sites. And I found that it really had this like cool global thing where we're all dealing with customers and we have all of these different challenges that we're trying to solve. But I got to meet so many awesome people. And I think that's the thing that I love about it is just meeting people. That's part of the reason why I started the podcast, right? To get to meet a ton of different people. From there, I made a change. I went to a boutique BPO based out of St. Louis called Customer Direct and built a training department literally from scratch with them. It was really exciting to kind of put my own fingerprints on something and kind of architect it in a way that made sense to me. And
I was going to say, how many years was that after being an agent? So, how much experience did you build there?
I was only an agent for about 10 months before I moved into a training role. Now, as a trainer, I was still occasionally getting on the phones. They would keep that skill up. Even when I went to Customer Direct, I was a learning and development manager was my official title when I started there. And every now and then, right, you need to take an escalation. You need to help out when you can. There are those times when you get all hands on deck. And I think that's something too in this business that you get to keep a pulse on the customers and what it's really like in a lot of organizations. It's not true of all organizations, but in a lot of organizations, that's the case. So when I say move quickly, like I moved very quickly. I was with Convergys for 6.5 years. And then Customer Direct, eventually we spun off a SaaS company called Happy2, providing solutions for contact centers. And I spent another 5 years there. We spun that off in 2020 and did that for a long time. And it's just really exciting. And the other thing about this business, if you're in the BPO or the SaaS side of things, is you get exposure to so many different industries. And that I always found endlessly fascinating.
And what did you see, I guess, that was unique to some industries, but what did you see that also converged across industries? Because I'm guessing there's a lot that you're going to see across pretty much every vertical, but there'll be some edge cases as well.
Yeah, I think what you see across every vertical is customers tend to have very similar problems, and customers react a certain way to certain things. So, for instance, long wait times. Nobody likes sitting in queue for a long time. I mean, I name my podcast Next in Queue because, right, you sit in a queue sometimes if there's not an immediate agent available, and I know we've all experienced that, and it kind of stinks. Like you get this like really compressed audio music that is probably a tune that you're not really enthused with. You can't play like really great music because it's so compressed that a song you would like would just sound like trash. So nobody does that. And there's also been for a long time this kind of concerted effort by companies to deflect, whether that's using the IVR, whether that's using chatbots. Now it's, hey, can we have IVR like agents that are powered by AI that sound like a human that you can talk to? All of those efforts, I think, are in some ways understandable, but from a customer experience standpoint, it is rare that you ever hear a customer say, oh, I just love it when I get to an IVR. Like, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
What I
Yeah,
did
very
find
true.
unique is there are certain segments of customers that behave a little bit differently. And I'll give you an example. One, there's a segment of customers that are a little bit older, let's say. They have more patience. So I used to support a publication that probably a lot of your listeners would be very familiar with, based in the UK, The Economist newspaper. Their customer base tends to skew older. And so what we found was in the US, those customers had a lot more patience waiting in queue before you actually talk to them. And that was unusual compared to the typical customer base. And so when it came to metrics in a contact center, like when someone would tend to drop off the line after being in hold, they were on a tail end. Like they would hold on much longer to talk to someone because they had patience and they were probably retired, right? They probably didn't have a meeting to go to or something like that. So I always found that very fascinating that your customers may behave differently than the average person based off of whatever it is that your product or your service is.
Yeah, I think it's interesting as well when you look at how people value their time. You said, older demographic, more patient. You look now at some of the numbers around the average attention span and things, and you can see why being on hold or being in queue infuriates, because we're not used to having to wait for anything now. You can
Yeah.
be on social media, and if you're bored, with one swipe and about 8 seconds, you're on to the next thing, you're on to the next thing. So you can see why 5 minutes of queuing or 10 minutes of queuing or not even knowing how long could be frustrating for people.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got kids that are in their 20s, and I will tell you, and I hate to generalize about generations, but there is certainly a younger generation that gets often anxiety about being on the phone because they didn't grow up necessarily talking on the phone the way my generation grew up talking on the like that was all we could do was talk on the phone, or you go to somebody's house, like that's just the way
Yep.
it was. And then you've got this generation that grew up with electronic communication and the ability to use social media or messaging apps. And talking on the phone can actually induce some anxiety. And so when you talk about waiting in queue, that anticipation of talking on the phone actually increases that anxiety. And it's just not a very good experience if you're a person that experiences anxiety making that phone call. So I do think that's something that we are going to continue to grapple with as customer experience evolves and that generation becomes more and more your primary customer base.
I think that channel of choice thing, I think, businesses, we talked about it earlier about wanting to deflect, move away from the phones, but it's also understanding where your customers want to be. So my wife was a guest on the podcast a few weeks back, and she talked about from a neurodivergent perspective, she prefers a live chat situation for similar reasons. She knows what to expect. And she's accepting of that format, and she'd prefer that over the anxiety of, whenever I tell her, oh, I'm putting in one of those callback in queue, she's like, they don't work. No faith in them whatsoever. And yeah, it's that understanding what your customers' needs will be. And I think that's, we've not even spoken about AI much for an episode of a customer experience podcast so far, but that's where I think AI and intelligent routing and things start to improve in the future is, if I call up, well, what's my preference? Well, we know you don't like having to call. So if you're calling, there's a big why behind it. Whereas if it's someone that's always calling, maybe they're fine with that and we deprioritize that call. Whereas if we've got a caller here that we know doesn't call, something's gone wrong. So let's elevate that. Let's potentially offer deflection into another channel if we know we could potentially help them, but let's not push them that way if we don't need to.
Yeah, I think there are, number one, there's also a growing cohort of people. Again, this depends on who you're calling, what business this is, what product or service you need help with. But there's a growing cohort of people who, when they are forced to call, to your point, they've already tried to address the issue through these other channels that you've offered. And so there is likely a level of frustration because the phone call isn't their first choice. It's the last resort for them. So when you talk about, hey, Chris is calling, Chris never calls. We know Chris manages his account online all the time. He knows how to use the app. He knows how to navigate the website and the FAQs. We've seen that activity in the past. So the fact that he's calling tells us that this is something that he's already tried to manage himself. He hasn't been able to reach a resolution. And so now he's calling. Can we prioritize this call? So I love that example.
Rob, I guess one of the things I wanted to come back to as well is your history in the BPO world. And there's been so much change or potential change, or everyone's talking about the death of the agent and no need for CCaaS in the future. Where do you think the future lies if you had a crystal ball with that?
Chris, I think what we will see is there is going to be an increased adoption of customer facing AI. We're just at the beginning of this. That said, what we see from customers is that a lot of times they want to talk to a person. And so I think companies are smart to think about, how do we intelligently blend these two together so that we can introduce AI at a time when the customer will be accepting of that, but also have people ready, because the customer doesn't always want that. And while, yes, you can have AI sound empathetic, if I know it's AI, it's not real empathy. Like, it's just not. It's no different than that agent that delivers kind of the fake empathy statement that has no feeling
Scripted
behind it.
empathy.
Yeah, the scripted empathy that says, "Oh, Chris, I understand why this could be frustrating for you. Can I get your account number?" Like that, um, kind of, I'm just saying these words with no actual feeling behind them. We don't like that from a human. I don't believe we're going to like that from a robot either. And so there are going to be moments where we want to have a connection. There are going to be moments where we want to know that it's a real person that we're talking to. When you and I got started, I asked about your jersey. I asked about that because I too am a fan of sport. Cricket, I do not understand. Full disclosure, right? That is just not an activity. Like, the bat is weird. The games last for eons. It just doesn't make sense to my short American mind that just wants things over much more quickly. That said, I understand this feeling of like getting excited. I also understand the feeling of like being a collector, right? You told me that you're collecting kind of vintage jerseys. I'm a Lego Star Wars guy, as people who are watching the video
As is clear.
see. Yeah, as is clear. And so I understand that feeling of like a collecting passion and kind of the things that you like behind that. And you and I can have a connection on that AI, it's always going to feel fake. It's always going to feel fake. And so I do believe that there will be continued need for us as humans to connect with other humans, because it's hardwired in our DNA. That's just who we are.
I think we're certainly seeing that, and not the first person on the pod to talk about that need for more human connection. The more we automate, the more we use AI, the more that need for a one-to-one human connection exists.
Yeah. It's interesting. I talked to a previous guest that I've had on the show. I'm going to have him on the show again. And he used to work at Google on their Gemini project in AI. What he told me and what I plan to explore is that he is now very focused on actual in-person things, whatever that is, like being in person with people and focusing on experiences that are in person. And I find that to be a fascinating shift as someone who is on the leading edge of AI development, to say, I don't want that. This is where I think the value lies in experience. And so I think as we think about customer experience, companies would do well to think about how they can create those very personal experiences that give us that feeling of connection. And can you augment that with AI? Absolutely. We've been augmenting things with automation for decades, and that is not going to change, because businesses are always looking for ways to save money, to make more profit, and like, that's going to keep happening. But I will have an affinity for a company that delivers an amazing experience. And a lot of that comes with connection.
I think that gives us a really nice point to take a break. We'll place our customers on hold. Hopefully they won't depart. We'll test their patience a little bit. And then when we come back, we'll talk about one of your favorite customer experiences.
Sounds great. Thanks, Chris.
Your call is important to us. Please hold, and you'll be connected to your next favorite customer experience shortly.
Welcome back to my favorite customer experience. I'm joined this week by Rob Dwyer. And before the break, talking about how one of your friends who previously at Google working in AI is now pivoting to human experiences. And second half of the podcast, we always ask people about their favorite customer experiences. And I must say, I think in 20 odd episodes now, pretty much every single person has talked about a human experience, an in-person experience. So throw open the gauntlet, Rob. What have you got for us on your favorite customer experience?
I'm going to talk about something that is pretty generic. I could talk about a lot of customer experiences, like in restaurants, that were really exceptional. But I think there is a company, and this isn't going to be a surprise to people who see my background, who really understands customer experience and does a great job in so many different facets. And that company is Lego. So let's talk about, first of all, the service experience. If you have an issue with a set, which is rare, but I've had this happen one time, and I own an embarrassing number of Lego sets for a man who is approaching 50. Embarrassing. I'm not going to give you a number, but let's just say it's more than a handful. I have had one set where they have a sticker sheet in a lot of sets.
Yep.
And my sticker sheet had gotten stuck to the instruction booklet inside the box. And so when I open the box and I pull out the instruction sheet, the stickers are all like mangled and stuck. And I called up Lego's customer service line, and they were like, absolutely, we'll just send you a new sticker sheet. There's no charge for this. And they do this for pieces. If, for instance, you're missing a piece or you get a misprint on something, because some of their pieces do have pad printing on them. All of the minifigures, for instance, will have printing on them. It's rare, but if you get a misprint and you call up Lego customer service and say, hey, I got my brand new Ninjago set and my character, like, the print is off, they'll just send you another one. They send it to you at no cost. That is a great service recovery experience. But it's not just that, right? They have a website. And let's not forget, Lego is a toy. Lego is a toy that is intended for children. I just never grew up. But when you go to their website, it is clear that from the very first landing page, you can go to the website where you shop, or you can go to their play zone, where as a kid, you can have a play experience digitally. When you go to a Lego store, it's not just sets on shelves. They have built models. The first Lego store I ever went to was in the Mall of America, which is in Bloomington, Minnesota. I used to live there, and my office was right across the street from the mall. And I went in. It was the first Lego store I'd ever been into. This was probably 2006. And they had like a life-size Boba Fett made out of Lego there, among many other gigantic, awe-inspiring builds, right? And so there's this sense of imagination that you get when you walk into a Lego store. It's not just about the sets. that are on the shelves. It's about what else can you do with this? And the stores will also have a little play area where they have loose pieces. The kids can come up and just play with the loose pieces and build whatever their imagination brings to them in that moment. And so they have this wonderful sense of like, bring your imagination. Yes, we've got these sets and we've got instructions, and you can build like me, old man. I've got models. They're just display. Like, I'm not customizing anything. But for kids, yeah,
Nice little telephone box behind me.
yeah. For kids, it's all about driving their imagination and allowing them to create. And then talk about a customer experience. They have a program where they accept submissions for new sets from their fans, the people that are most passionate about creating their own custom creations. They can say, hey, Lego, I think that this would be a great set. They crowdsource sets, people vote on them. And those that receive enough support become official Lego sets, and the designer gets a cut of the profits that come from that. So when you talk about creating fans, they do an amazing job of cultivating their fandom. And when a customer has a really great idea, they embrace this. So what does this mean for other companies? Like, when we listen to customers who have great suggestions and implement those, we can drive increased fandom, right? Increased loyalty. We can actually come up with new and exciting ideas for our company just by engaging with our customers who already like what we do, whether it's a product or a service. They're already a buyer. All we need to do is give them an avenue to say, what else could we do? What could we do better? What would take this experience to the next level for you? And it's amazing how people will react to that and give you great feedback.
I think when I think about the Lego ecosystem as well, I mean, we have quite a few Lego sets around this house. Weirdly, I had it growing up in a, just a box of Lego and you make stuff. And then I didn't really touch it for years. And my desktop background for a number of years was a Nintendo with a Lego spaceman on top of it. I think it's Benji from the movie. And one of my colleagues and friends, his mum worked at Lego, so he sourced that character for me. And then I sourced, got the little Nintendo, used to be there. I don't know where it is now, somewhere in this office. So I kind of recreated that. And then when lockdown happened, it's like, well, we need stuff to do. And they brought out the NES with the TV.
Yeah.
So there I am, like a couple of years before 40, building out my first proper Lego set for 30 odd years.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, to your point, like it's not just, I think there was one set we had where we were missing something and it was all self-serve. You just say, right, I'm in this set and I'm missing this part, and it's all really easy. But even the customer experience when you're building it, there's loads of Easter eggs. My wife built, I call it Nerd Corner. It's like 3 stories high, and it's got like a toilet under the stairs of the first story, and you can't see it when it's completed. You have no idea what it is. But if you've built it, you know. It's like, if you know, you know. And even when I think about their customer experience, like, because we bought stuff, we've got like Lego memberships online, and we've got some loyalty points, and I've no idea if they're worth anything whatsoever. But of all the loyalty programs I'm part of, they're the one that emailed me to say, hey, you've got some points. Them and I think one of the supermarkets over here, they're like, you've got some points, you need to spend them. Now, okay, they're driving you to go and spend, but also they're going, you don't want to miss out on, you have earned this. And I think the entire experience, I mean, I look at Lego, yes, it's a toy, but it's also They're very aware it's a premium product, but they provide a premium service. From the moment you walk in, their retail outlets are different to everything else out there. There's imagination at play. There's, the whole thing. When I talk to engineers, I'm always talking about play. Go and play with the product. Just because it's no longer Lego and it's a telephony platform and it's a CCaaS platform or conversational AI, if you're playing, you're learning, you're thinking, you're developing. They've carried on that. You walk in and it still feels like a magical experience. Sure, you can go to a big toy store and get the Lego set for $10 cheaper, but the experience of going into a Lego store makes it just exceptional.
Yeah. And there are all the other things that they've developed around that to support that experience in different ways, right? There's Legoland, which is a whole theme park full of giant Legos. This is pretty amazing. There's the Lego movie, right? There are Lego video games that you can play. And so I think Lego has both tapped into, not tapped into, they have perfected this play because that is the intent. But also to your point, they've tapped into the nostalgia so that the adults who have grown up with Lego, right? I was playing with Lego in the 80s, and the space sets and the castle sets, like those were the classic sets that I grew up with. But they've re-released those. Why? Nostalgia. Yes. Will kids today enjoy those the same way? Absolutely. But they know exactly who they're selling those sets to. And it's not just the kids. They're aiming it at the adults. These sets behind me, these are not sets that you buy for kids very often because they're incredibly expensive and they are very challenging builds. They know exactly who they're selling those to. They're selling them to the parents that have the disposable income and are willing to drop that kind of money.
Yeah, I must admit, whenever our nieces come over, it's like, right, which Lego is allowed to be on display today and which is being hidden away? And the nostalgia point, they're just about to release a Game Boy. And I'm like, I had one of them growing up. They've, the picture down here is the Formula One Williams from about 92, 93 when Nigel Mansell won. And they've just released that. And that, I saw that in the store. I'm like, I have to have that. I have to build that. And yeah, they tap into multiple generations of, and I guess they've influenced our behaviors because we remember it. We've continued with it. You said you have more than a handful, more than an acceptable number of Lego sets. I don't think that applies now. Maybe my parents' generation are like, oh, it's Lego. It's let's put out a nice vase instead or a nice china plate. I'm like, I'd much prefer to have my phone box, my car, my random stuff made of Lego.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely is a way to express your personality in some ways. And they've continued to build out these different themes that allow you to do this as well. I don't have them up currently. But anyone who goes and watches kind of older versions of my podcast, they'll see that I've got the Beatles artwork as well, right? So
The
four
the
different
four faces.
sets. The
Yeah,
four
in our hallway.
faces. Yeah, and you've got Van Gogh now, right? You've got the Great Wave. You've got all of these kind of classic art masterpieces that you can now build out of Lego. Van Gogh's sunflowers, right? They also have their botanical line. So if you want to just have beautiful flowers that aren't going to die, now they don't have the same scent as fresh flowers. But if you want to have a house full of nice green plants and bright, colorful flowers that will never die, you can just build them out of Lego, and they're constantly coming out with new ones. And I think they do a great job of tapping into whatever that interest is that you have. There's a Lego set for that. And that's just brilliant.
I think what I normally ask people as well is, how does it make you feel when you're dealing with Lego? and their customer experience and their stores. How does that make you feel?
Yeah, I think there is a sense of wonder and a sense of joy and a sense of excitement that comes with that. I know when I think about putting together a new set, I am excited. I am excited to get into it. There's also this sense of building something. I know that there's been a study done both around things like Lego, but also like IKEA furniture, right? We put more value onto something that we have assembled ourselves than something that was assembled by someone else. So, for instance, you can buy a Lego on the secondary market, right? People sell their sets all the time. There is an additional cost for something that's new in the box. And this is true of lots of products versus something that's already assembled. But part of the reason is if it's already assembled, I don't get the
Just an
joy
ornament.
of building it, right? I can because I can disassemble and reassemble it. And I have absolutely done that. But there's this certain sense of joy that comes with opening that box and taking out the pieces and going through and assembling it yourself. And you get to discover those Easter eggs that you're talking about, whether it's a little pink piece. They have this thing with how many times they can hide a pink
random
piece
things.
inside, right? But that experience, right, becomes something that I created. And so whether it's sitting on my shelf or I've got a picture of it or what have you, like I did that, I built that. And Lego understands that we like to create, we like to build, and they capitalize on that.
I feel this is a very easily answered question now. So, in terms of influencing your behaviors, do you find yourself recommending Lego?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are a number of different brands that I am a huge fan of, and I will 100% recommend or talk about. But I think just looking behind me, right? If that's not a recommendation, I don't know what is. Like, I am literally just like, if you see me on camera, oh, by the way, you're going to see these sets behind me. And that is as big of a recommendation, I think, as you can give.
Awesome. Well, I think we're now at 20 odd episodes out of 20 that have all been human led experiences and things that we get to actually do and experience ourselves. So, Rob, thank you very, very much for sharing that. Where can people find you if they want to learn more about you, learn more about the podcast?
Well, first of all, thank you, Chris, for having me. And I am all over LinkedIn. Like, look, you can find me on LinkedIn, the podcast. You can find both on YouTube. So just youtube.com/@nextinq or wherever you get your podcasts.
Awesome. Well, Rob, thank you very much for joining us on My Favorite Customer Experience.
Thanks, Chris. It's been great.
Thanks for tuning in, folks. We'll catch you soon.
Thank you for listening to My Favorite CX. Your listenership is important to us. On your keypad, please press a number between 1 and 5 to rank how much you've enjoyed your experience.